You know, it really grinds my gears when San Antonio has their very own horror radio show, but nobody knows where to tune the hell in.
Guess who? I know all about the Basement Files. It's the show with host Jenna Valadez. Every Friday night, she talks about UFOs, demons, ghosts, time slips, scary dolls, and more. You should tune in on Para X Radio.
Okay. Herbert? Jesus Christ, where the hell did you come from? Where's it at?
I'll show you. Just follow me down the basement.
Okay. No thanks, though.
I'll give you a nice cold popsicle.
Ooh, can we listen to the Basement Files show?
Okay, but if you get scared, I'll be right here beside you, holding your hand.
Freaking sweet popsicle.
Welcome, basement dwellers. It's me, Jenna Valadez, with the Basement Files. Tonight is a Friday before Halloween, and I have a very special guest with me tonight by the name of Miss Solaris BlueRaven. Welcome to the show, Solaris.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for having me. For a second, I was pretending I was the host.
It's a bad habit to break, I know. So, I want to start from the very beginning with you. I read your bio. How old were you when you discovered that you had the abilities to read minds or have that psychic ability connection?
Well, since I can remember, since I was a child, I've always been very naturally psychic, very intuitive. I grew up in a family where we were all intuitives and psychics. So my mother, she did tarot and tea leaves and all that good stuff. I can remember as far back as I can as a child just being very, very sensitive to energy frequencies, also being able to see things, predict things, and usually I didn't really tell people unless they wanted to know, and then I would kind of chime in. And as I grew and evolved, as I got older, I started to develop these skills and fine-tune them. Otherwise, they would just control me, so I had no choice, really. It's one of those things where you just fine-tune your skills to that level.
Did it scare you?
Not really. It was interesting. I wasn't really afraid, and I think that's one of the reasons why I've been able to dive in such deep waters, is because there's been no fear. It's just been about experience and understanding that there's so many levels to consciousness. Mm-hmm. And even as a young one, I was able to understand that I was dealing with energy and signatures and frequency, but I didn't know how to interpolate it back then.
Wow. So was there something in your past growing up, was it something that was significant that kind of triggered it to make you delve deeper in?
No, as a child, no, I would say not until I reached adulthood, and then I just started to develop my skills going into certain areas of holistic medicine and healing, excuse me, and then also areas involving the craft, a practitioner. And then I just started diving into levels of spirituality, which dealt with a lot with Merkaba and light body, which is very multi-layered in its own. And if you looked at my bio, you'll notice that there's also a part where I was pulled into a covert program in 2004. That's when my life changed drastically. That's when I started really understanding what was going on a very big scale. So that's the biggest transition I had.
Is that when things started to make sense?
Yeah, they really made sense insofar as understanding what was here, what's been hidden behind the scenes, how supernatural worlds and supernatural realms are actually kind of dovetailed into the covert technologies and how they actually have been weaponized to some degree. So, yeah.
So do you kind of use your abilities as like a foundation in the paranormal field with your experiences?
Yeah, I pretty much do that. I mean, it's just one of those things where you're always wired for it, so I just do what I do from day to day. I do timeline astrology, oracle readings, and a lot of other things. Sometimes I do scans and investigations. I'm more tuned into the covert technologies just because of where I've been, so that's what I look at.
So were you trained on it, or is it you're self-taught?
I was inducted into a covert program where they literally trained me. And
Wow.
that happened in 2004. I went through a lot of different various projects and programs. And from that point on, I started to decode a lot of the technology, which was based on synthetic telepathy. And I put it into a book called Either Remote. It was an Either Remote, Black Operations in Areas Beyond 52. And then I also created a documentary called Either Remote, A Disclosure in Covert Technology. And there's a sequel to that, which is called Programmed by Deception. And all of these things are connected to me decoding and breaking down the technology that's connected to the weaponization of the spiritual world, but also the mystical world and the psychic world as well.
And you weren't afraid, or you didn't fear what you were discovering?
I was in trauma the first time I was pulled into the covert program, and then after that I just decoded it because it's just my design to do things, to just keep going forward and just keep moving and ascending. It's not my style to just cower and kind of just, go run away somewhere. So literally, I didn't really have any fear associated with it. I had a lot more people in covert intel not appreciating and not wanting me to talk about this stuff, but that was their problem, and, they picked the wrong person to experiment on. Let's put it that way.
That's crazy. Can you tell us a little bit about your experiment, or how they came about finding
how they pulled me into the program was in 2004, and it was literally done by remote satellite access. Literally, I've touched on this in a lot of my books and my documentary. But what they'll do is they'll do a surveillance on, or surveil a home and a person in the home for perhaps even a week or so or prior, if they find a target they're interested in. And I was one of the people they were interested in. So they did a surveillance on my house, and they started hijacking my computers and my phones, and then eventually tagged my electromagnetic field and neural circuitry with a remote signal, which literally interfaces me with artificial intelligence, live feed real time, and also synthetic telepathy and a handler live feed real time. And these were people high profile in the music industry. It's a really long story, but that's the technology behind it, and that's what they did in 2004 that started this whole thing.
Wow, that's just intriguing. I didn't think something like that could possibly happen.
Oh, it's out there, and there are patents to show it. A lot of the day, back in the day, people wouldn't even associate, they wouldn't understand what the covert technology is. But nowadays, things are becoming more and more clear to people. The veils are being lifted, not only for spirituality, but for technology that's been hidden. So now people are starting to understand there is technology out there. DARPA's been working on these projects, and actually, I was one of the first people who was pulled into some of the technology DARPA's actually deploying right now. So I was one of their lab rats for the synthetic telepathy program, which works very, very well, by the way.
And that's one of the topics we used to talk about with my producer before he passed away. He was so interested in DARPA and the things that they did. He was at the point where he was not quite understanding how it was not as visible as how you're saying it, because it's hidden behind, I don't know how to say it. It's like they're not exposed to, or not being exposed. And then they're doing things that are just a little bit out there that kind of make people, if they're careful of looking at it, they kind of question what's going on. That whole area in DARPA and the way they hide things, it's incredible. And then you're coming from it. It's so weird that you're coming from it, and you are the kind of person I've always wanted to talk to, especially about these covert manipulations that DARPA did have, and how they came about getting it from people that just have this connection with Earth. It's just really crazy that I'm speaking to you about that.
Yeah, they'd like to hijack it. I will tell you, anybody who's into the craft, witches, spiritual people, conduits, psychics, they are usually tagged in covert operations to some degree. Not everybody gets pulled into the project I was pulled into, but I will say one thing: they always tag and release because they know you have capabilities to access multidimensional space of consciousness and also spirituality. And if you're able to access that, they figure you can access other things off planet, which is true. So you're going to find that you'll see a lot of people in the craft world getting hijacked with technology. And one thing I can tell people is you have to be very careful what you're hearing and listening to, because sometimes it's synthesized through the covert program, and other times it's natural, as etheric communication system.
Now, how far have your levels gone? Have you been extraterrestrial, or you mentioned ethereal? Have you gotten that connection?
I consider us all to be star people. So yeah, I'm definitely off-world. I'm off-world integrated onto this world. And just from my own personal experiences and where I've been on the path of spirit and alchemy and mysticism, I went to very high levels of consciousness, and then they pulled me into a covert program which dealt with artificial intelligence interface, and that completely morphed me into a very different design work. So I would classify us as transcending our powers to the highest level, but at the same time, yeah, definitely off-world, and the type of access I had and interface with was definitely not not your average communication system.
So you've dealt with the transmutation through ascension?
I wrote a book called Transmutation Through Ascension, which dealt with alchemy insofar as light body levels through frequency, which basically is your spiritual lifestyle that just keeps morphing and morphing your DNA to a point where you start receiving more of your multidimensional design. Now, what happens is you get to levels of light body where you activate your Merkaba, and the Merkaba is what we call the vehicle of light. So that vehicle of light, when accessed, is capable of multiversal celestial design work, phenomenal avatar abilities, phase shifting, bilocation, you name it, you can do it. And also consciousness in motion, which is really about how we travel from point A to point B in the cosmos. So I believe that everybody really does have that wiring. It's just a matter of accessing it and running with that frequency. And once again, you mentioned fear early on. I think that has a lot to do with it. Some people get afraid of their power, and they get afraid of moving to the next level of consciousness. But I will tell you, letting go and shedding skins is a really good idea because you want to access that full potential.
So then, what is your belief as like when Einstein says energy can't die, and when people pass away, what do you know where we go?
Well, energy never dissipates, it changes form, that's true.
Yeah.
And we also have what we call a soul's essence of origin, which means you incarnate on and off planet. So depending on where you've been and which star system you've been to, or where you come from, an essence of origin, so to speak, is probably where you'll return to, in my opinion, okay? I can tell you point blank that not everybody comes from the same location in the space-time continuum and the illusion of, and they will go home to their star families or to their essence of origin, where they come from. So that's my impression of what goes on. I think there are many different species here disguised in suits, and those of us who are attracted to mysticism or magic in some form are probably more off-world than the rest to a lot of levels.
Wow, I've never heard it said that way, but it does make a lot of sense. I'm extremely in awe right now because you just blew my mind. I had a few questions to ask you, but now I'm just like all into learning a little bit more about that. Like how do you develop from? I know you were born into it because you said your mom and you have family that's had this ability.
Yeah, I think it's a legacy and it's a genetic heritage, but it's also what I call celestial heritage, which means it's more about who you are as a multidimensional star being incarnate. Just like you, I mean, you're a star being too. It's your skills are based on your multidimensional design work, your psyche, your consciousness. So it's that same thing. We're very unique and individual. It's just that we haven't been taught this. Most of the time, well, I don't have to tell everybody out there, but literally, people get pulled into fake, false matrices and school systems which indoctrinate them and teach them how to forget who they are as spiritual multidimensional beings versus, mastering your skills and doing the work.
Which is why I left the organized religion of Catholicism, because I felt you could feel the difference between the energy in Earth and Wicca and the path that you follow.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's liberation. It's also embracing your personal spiritual power. It's the same thing with, and I always say the churches are just basically a spin-off of paganism to some degree because they've copied and hijacked everything containing to religion. Insofar as spiritual Wicca, craft work, mystery school teachings, they've hijacked all that stuff.
Oh yeah. The holidays, Christmas, pagan holidays. Did you have anything terrifying as a paranormal experience when you were going through this change?
Well, I can tell you when I attended my mother's funeral. I think it wasn't necessarily terrifying. It was disturbing because a lot of what happened as I was inducted into the Cobra program in April 2004, and she passed away in June. I attended her funeral under the duress of the program, which was live feed real-time communication system with a handler, also artificial telepathy, and a lot of different programs running simultaneously. And they really made it a point to kind of hijack her energy to a point where they were synthesizing her voice pattern and actually playing it to me. And I knew it wasn't her voice. And that I found very, very disturbing. Wow. And that's when I realized that they can actually mimic and copy certain people's voice patterns and vibrational frequencies and brain templates to a point where they can actually mimic a person, make a synthesized ghost, but it won't be the real person, it won't be their essence and spirit. So that was very disturbing to me to know that wasn't my mother, that was an imposter program. And it wasn't like a demon or a ghost, this was manufactured. So that was the creepiest thing I think I've ever experienced.
Wow, how do you prevent that from happening? I mean, how can you tell the difference?
You can tell the difference because it usually loops, like it doesn't have a direction. It just sounds like a looping program insofar as just something that's more like an entrainment program. You can tell it sounds very synthesized and very what I call computer oriented. Yet it does take on the signature of the person's voice pattern. Real spirits, as you probably are aware of, the ones I've always encountered are just very, very lucid in consciousness. They connect in and they allow you to communicate with them in a natural kind of telepathic flow, but there's not a domination program hitting you. That's the biggest thing I noticed is that when you get interfaced with technology, you'll know it because it completely invades your brainwave template to a point where you're getting constantly bombarded with narratives that don't belong.
Right.
It's not like you're getting messages from spirit. You're getting bombarded. They're running a program to run interference against your psychic ability and your natural telepathy, and that's what they specialize in.
Do you think they could do it to the point where you're unsure of your own abilities?
I think they can if you're kind of a newbie and you don't know what's going on and you get hijacked.
Right.
Then I would say you can get very lost. And I see a lot of people out there I know these days that do a lot of channeling, quote unquote channeling. And I just say, be clear, but connect to your higher self, oversoul, superconscious, because there's always a potential to be brain hacked remotely, hijacked remotely. The brain hacking is satellite-driven technology. Sometimes it's low frequency, ultra low frequency, but it's easy to do. It's not as hard as you think it is.
Yeah. So with the radio and the quantum signals that you have in your book about mapping your psychic abilities and the signals that you're getting, where did that stem from? Where is it already inside you, or is it something that's being sent to you?
Well, the initial signals that they map are your own vibrational frequencies and signatures. Like for me in 2004, they mapped my multidimensional design and my energy signature, my Merkaba signature, everything that I'm capable of doing and harnessing through energy and consciousness. They were able to literally triangulate, map, and interface onto their artificial intelligence communication system. And what they do once they get that data stream is create their own version and then create a feedback and attach it back on into an interface with a link to the brain to create their version. So that's it's almost like mind control to some degree. It's also for training and a lot of other things.
Mm-hmm. That's fascinating. I'm going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to have a lot more, more interesting stuff. Thank you, Solaris. Just hold on a second.
Okay.
And we'll be back. You're listening to The Basement Files here on ParaX Radio.
The damned are all around us, ghastly figures unseen. The wretched walk among us with unseen footsteps lingering just behind you. Join me at the Basement Files with your host, Jenna Valadez, to find out what really lurks in your shadows. Are you scared?
You should be.
Every Friday, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern, only on ParaX Radio.
Welcome back to the Basement Files. I'm speaking with author Solaris BlueRaven, and the first segment just blew my mind. I have to tell you, you've opened up a brand new door. I was going to ask you the two worlds. Well, I don't know if you would call it two worlds, but the connection between the living and the dead and the paranormal and the parallel worlds. Is there a connection?
Oh, absolutely. And what we seem to understand, or maybe some people misunderstand, is that we're multidimensional, as I said, but when we transfer out, we merge with a part of our essence that's already out there. In other words, other aspects of us are already out there in the cosmic design.
Right.
So when we leave our bodies, we actually do a merge. There is a parallel bleed through. So that is definitely out there. But insofar as the world of the dead goes, and the illusion of death, which is just an illusion, technically speaking, we're supposed to be immortal beings. And I think the reason that a lot of us on this illusion of a planet tend to have an expiration date is because it's been a construct of man. Man created a construct to kind of disempower us to a level of where we don't become immortalized in our physical. We don't take our bodies with us the way we're supposed to, right, because of the programming that's here. So, but the spirit world is very, very strong in all spaces and formulas. But what I would say is that there is a weaponization of the spirit world, and that's what people need to pay attention to, that not everything that goes bump in the night is a true spirit or a true ghost, that sometimes it can be synthesized.
And so do you believe, well, my old Catholic training believed, there's a bunch of demons, demonic, spiritual worlds, fallen angels and all that. Do you follow that? Do you believe in something?
Well, I've studied a lot of religions, and I embrace everybody, for the most part, but I am a very spiritual celestial being, and I understand very clearly that a lot of people are dealing with indoctrination and programming. Also, the only demons that I've ever really experienced are man at his worst with covert technology, to be honest with you. So, as far as real demonic, or I call demons neutral spirits, I haven't seen anything out there that matches the type of misuse of warfare that they do in their covert intel. I'll tell you that point blank. I think that everything that you see or experience that can even look like a possession can be an electronic possession. It can appear as they're being possessed, but it can be interfaced with technology to make them look that way too. Once again, that's the remote brain hacking. So, and we all know also that the Vatican has a lot of connection to this type of technology, which they'll never disclose to the mass collective. So that's another thing you have to look at. Not everything is about demons.
Right. So,
or even Satan, because that's their construct too.
Exactly. That could be just something that they made up to have fear put in everybody.
Control and manipulation. It's always about, if you control the hive, if you control the mass collective, you can control reality. That's what we all know in the craft. We create and manifest our own reality. We can influence everything around us. They know this too. That's why they're trying to control and manipulate our reality through covert warfare. At least with me, they did. So. Wow,
that's just crazy. Crazy.
Yeah, it's wild stuff. Let me tell you. It's like Alice in Wonderland.
Oh, that's what it sounds like. Because it's just you can't know. It's like I don't know, like a new wave or nouveau matrix, where you're not sure if you're actually doing things that you should be doing.
Right. Well, everything is a program, as far as I can tell, and that's the one thing that I realize more and more is that we create our own program as we go through our belief systems and how we function and operate from day to day. So, depending on what you want to believe in is how you're going to manifest a reality. But what I've noticed is that they've kind of created a reality for us where they're indoctrinating most people to a point where it's this way or no way. And if you go outside the box, if you start reaching levels of consciousness or your own evolution where it is a threat to them or their intelligence communities, then they will definitely try to intercept or do something to bring you down to their false matrix.
Wow. So in part of your books, because you keep mentioning mind control kind of thing going on, in your book you did mention that because I always told the story when I was younger, about 11 years old, I saw an actual UFO or UFO, whatever you want to call it. It was a huge, very silent, quiet, big, huge thing, and it was huge, and it was almost like I could touch it, but I never saw anything of it. Now, I never thought I was ever abducted, but I started to have things on my body that I didn't notice until I got older. And then I have read somewhere that you had said that the alien entities were created by the government.
Well, some of them are, but I can tell you, contactees, and you sound like a real contactee, plus your skill level is definitely contactee. What I call star people, you're a star being. So what I consider you to be a contactee, which has interface or natural communication with off-world species. That's your species, so to speak. What they'll do, what the covert intel does, is tag contactees, so they can pull them into what we call military operations, military abductions, which is my lab. You'll hear some people call it MILAB, I call it my lab. Military abductions, where they'll pull people in for control manipulation. They'll also create screen memories to make you forget, and things like that. So that is the potential whenever you have access to off-world species. But we are the star people. We are the off-world species we seek. We are the extraterrestrials. And I want to make sure people understand that everybody's looking for something, but we are that. What they're trying to do is deny us of our celestial birthright, and that is not okay. And they're using mind control to do it.
No, the celestial birthright. What's funny is I had an older sister, and she passed away in 2008. And one of my other sisters had a dream about her and asked her, what are you doing? Where are you going in your dreams? Because I always say, the ones that left us would always come into contact with us in our dream world. And my older sister at that time told her that she wasn't an angel, but she was celestial. So when you say that, it's kind of freaking me out, because
that gives me chills, because that to me is a confirmation. I don't hear it very often either, and that's the true terminology. So that's very interesting and very, very true.
And that's why I freaked out. When you keep saying celestial, I'm like, oh my God, it reminded me of my older sister, and she came to say that to my other sister. And it was hard for my other sister, because she doesn't believe, and she follows an organized religion, and I will say she's Jehovah, or Jehovah wannabe, and she doesn't believe in that stuff. She doesn't believe in, expanding outside her mind. She's just straight and narrow and
it's
following
just programming. That. You know what it is? And it's just, to me, religious structures are just a stepping stone to get to another level. You know, if people need that to get to another level, that's okay. But they can't get stuck there in the belief system, because a lot of those belief systems are based on false communication or false indoctrination programming based on all sorts of scriptures that aren't even accurate, that have been censored over the centuries. So you're dealing with people who really don't know. But if their heart is pure and their intent is pure, I would say to rise above that and transcend it. But, you know, we can't tell them this. I'm sure you can relate to being persecuted to some degree for being involved in witchcraft or a witch or whatever, or mysticism. I have gone, I don't know, I just so many levels of people that are out there that'll do that. Yet at the same time, they practice almost a similar thing in their own psyche through their own belief systems, even naturally. So everything is a ritual, but it's interesting.
This is true. This is true. And I have been, by my sister who is Jehovah, she would always say that I'm demonic or I am devil and I'm going to go to hell. And I say, okay, I'll just, drive the bus there with you.
I think this is hell. You know what? I resonate with your energy. At first time I heard your show, I thought it was awesome, by the way.
Thank you.
And I was on Rock Castaldo's show, and I was listening to yours, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. That's why I reached out to you. Plus,
Thank you.
The craft background and everything else. So, yeah, no, I think you're fantastic. And it's interesting. I think people are just fearful. They're afraid, and they like to project that onto everybody else, unfortunately.
I think the fear is because I've become and grown so comfortable into where I'm headed on my path. And I've seen the reality of, I've been in an organized religion and then I took myself out of it, following my Native American path. So that was very comforting, that I'm more closer to the earth itself rather than to man and how he perceives it. But
what Native American, which one are you?
I am from the Tohono Nation, and in English it's Papago. But in 1985 they outlawed it in Arizona. I'm born in San Antonio. My mom, my sisters are all full-blooded. I'm the only half one. But I took and embraced my mom's religion and her whole path and her background, because my mom was such a beautiful, loving person, and she smiled, and she was blind and in a wheelchair, and she would be smiling every day. And I wish I could adapt that, but the negativity that I've been around in my life so far, it's just been really hard to take that level and be really nice and smile.
I get it. I totally get it. Well, you're the spiritual warrior. You sound like a spiritual warrior. I'm like that too. I used to be really nice, and then I went through a covert warfare program that was worse than any hell I've ever experienced.
Yeah.
And I came out a little jaded and a lot more warrior-like. So I do have a little Cherokee in me. That's why I asked. But yeah, I think that there's a signature of a lot of spirituality, a lot of contactee associated with Native American and a lot of different tribes. So I think that's maybe you just bringing forth that energy once again and radiating that energy on behalf of your ancestors.
Oh, I think so. My grandfather on the reservation was a very high spiritual man, and a lot of people went to him. And what's funny is he used the earth, and he used the animals. My sister would have fainting spells when she was little, and she would always black out. So he sat her in one of the teepees out there on the reservation, and he had these dogs that would go and would lick her. And he would tell my mom that something was in their saliva that would actually help heal my sister's illness. And it actually did. It stopped it. She was like 3 or 4 when the dogs were around her licking her and everything. And he said it was because it was a special healing from them. So, yeah, that's kind of where I want to be as far as the spiritual path goes. I'm spiritual, I'm not religious, but I do
that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been involved in the craft for a very long time, and I transcended a lot of it on an alchemical level only because I realized that there's a lot of covens out there that are just doing work that's so behind everything. And they're so behind. And nothing offense to anybody, but I'm like, I'm light years behind. I come from like galactic states of consciousness, so I have to transcend that. And my group, like I have Blue Order, Blue Star Celestial Order, and also the Blue Star Fortress, which is my group, which is literally about alchemy. It's about transcending everything from its lowest to its highest, transmutation, but also ritual work at its highest level, which I think people have forgotten how to do to some degree, or sacred ceremony at its highest level. And even what you're talking about, that's very high alchemy when you think about it. It's not polluted. Let's put it that way.
This is true. This is just very basic. It's all natural. It's based on nature. So, and what's funny is also I've always been into alchemy. I have a bunch of books on alchemy, but I've just never taken the step to follow through as far as opening up certain doors and transmutating my brain.
You will.
Oh, I want to. I really want to.
I know you will.
But I have I still have that little unsuredness about me. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing anymore at times, I guess, because life happens.
Right, and that's where you trust your higher self over soul superconscious and just let go. And you know what? You can't make any errors when you're plugged into your higher self over soul superconscious. It'll all flow accordingly by cosmic design. That's what I've always done. People are always worried about, is this going to work? Is that going to work? If you're connected to source beyond the word, it's going to flow exactly the way it needs to. Don't even worry. And I think that's what it boils down to. But if you're attracted to those things, it's for a reason. There's no doubt about that.
Well, now I know there's no doubt, because I never met anybody who was open enough to admit, like you have admitted, where it can take you and where you went from one level to another. And now I know, just talking to you, it's a possibility.
Oh, absolutely it is, and it's a journey that we're all destined to have, in my opinion. So hold on for the ride.
And when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the alchemy side. Stay tuned. You're listening to the Basement Files.
There have been great combinations. Mac and cheese, peanut butter and jelly, peaches and herb, milk and cookies, night and day. And now, the Basement Files and Para X Radio.
And welcome back to the Basement Files. I am speaking with Solaris BlueRaven, who is an author and an amazing person. I can feel her spiritual soul, so it's a big connection that I'm very happy that you are on my show, and I'm very blessed to have you here with me.
Well, likewise. I feel the same about you, too. There's definitely something there, some camaraderie there on the starseed.
So now that Samhain's here, and it's going to be coming up on Tuesday, I think, is the 31st. Do you have any special plans going on?
Well, I have some plans to work with some covenanters of mine. We're just going to connect and have a nice little feast and literally respect those who have transferred out, and just make it kind of low-key, and also respect those spirit animals who have moved on as well. Anything that's connected to family that has moved on. A lot of our animals have passed away, and so we're going to do something connected to that. It's just going to be kind of low-key, but it'll be fun. And we usually get together every year. Sometimes we do the dumb feast, which is, real more hardcore insofar as this, you have a plate and you have food out for the dead and those who've transferred out, and you open up the door and cast a death circle and all that. But right now, I think we're just going to keep it kind of casual. I think the older we get, the more we realize that simplicity is nice, and that you don't have to do a lot of dramatic theater or... you just don't. You just through consciousness,
Right. So, do you do the solstices when they're up and around?
Yeah, I connect with my my covenanters. Yeah, we connect with around solstice. We connect around the pagan holidays and all different holidays. When we're guided to get together, we get together, and we do pretty mellow circles. These days we do a lot of mellow work. We don't really do anything hardcore. On occasion we'll do something connected to maybe a seance or something like that, or sometimes we'll do remote viewing. We've done those in the past. More just fine-tuning things, just kind of fine-tuning exercises these days. Right. I know we sound like a bunch of retired witches, but literally it's kind of like, that's what it is, really. We all get together and respect each other and just kind of have good conversations. Those conversations that go until like 2 or 3 in the morning based on the cosmos. That's pretty much what we do. Stuff like that. Good stuff.
I just turned 48, so I am a crone. I am there with you. I get
it. Right. Well, you're still a baby. I'm older than you. Embrace your croneness.
I am embracing my croneness. You keep mentioning covenanters. Are you part of a coven?
I'm affiliated with a coven that I worked with a long time ago, and we're still connected, although I have Blue Star Fortress, which is more mine. So we have a lot of elders from other covens basically come and connect in with me, and we go and over to my place and have our feasts and things like that.
So do you have your special place for your altar? I mean, when you go and you call to the winds? I had a friend of mine who had these huge rock formations, and they lived out in the boonies in the country. And they invited me for the summer solstice one time, and I went, and their grandkids were there, and they wanted to dance in the fire, and we had to, go into the circle, and then exit the circle in Winishins, and then we toasted a dark ale, and we had our athames out, and people I'd never noticed their neighbors were like watching us because we were all in cloaks and stuff.
Oh, funny.
But
yeah, that's happened to us on a few occasions. Actually, some of my friends who live downtown, you know, they live in a very, like, kind of burbs kind of subdivision. So, yeah, I understand where that comes from. We had, one time we were doing some ritual out there, and all of us had our cloaks on, and, you know, people would peek out the windows and look. But I think they were saying that's where the Satanists live. Whole things. I mean, it's like so off. They have no idea what's going on. But yeah, exactly. If you come up here for a circle work or a ceremony, sometimes we'll do it outside. And we do have rocks too, because where I live is up high in the mountains. So we do outside. It's very, very beautiful. And then I have my own ritual room up in like a loft area. So if we want to do indoors, depending on the weather, we can do that as well. But I have my own altar and all my wonderful little celestial objects or ritual objects, whatever you want to call them, up there. And yeah, it's really nice. But out here, there's no intruders usually. We don't have a lot of people that are, you know, rubbernecking to watch. But it's funny though.
I said,
when you think about it.
If you sit back and look about everything that you went through in your past life and the life that you've lived up till now, is there anything specific that was more of a celestial opening inside you that was really significant, that made you believe you are supposed to be who you are today?
I think it was my book, Transmutation Through Ascension, to be honest with you, because that's the book that triggered everything. That's the book, when I first went live with that book, that's the book that pulled me into the covert program. That's the book that they were challenging with even the technology and information they were using with me with Interface. That seemed to me that was a big deal. So that was an awakening as far as knowing thyself, right? Knowing who you are as a multiversal, multidimensional being. Right. Know your avatar consciousness. Know that we're star people. Knowing that the DNA can be activated through frequency and states of consciousness. Knowing that we have a Merkaba, which is a light body, which is a vehicle of life. I mean, all these things that we have, or the vehicle of light, rather, you know, all of those things are components to who we really, really are. That has been, you know, shoved under the carpet for a very long time. And if it's one thing that I've learned from the covert program, is that they desperately want to control and manipulate everything we are that's divine. And even the war on the goddess, the war on the divine feminine, there's been a lot of that going on. Unacceptable, obviously. Yes. So looking at where I've been, I have to say that it just makes me fight stronger and stay more in my power to be an ascended being, a star being, and accepting our celestial heritage. I mean, that's the bottom line. So that's what it's taught me over the years. And also to stay strong and don't let them control, manipulate you, and bring you down to their level. Just keep ascending, keep moving, and keep growing and evolving. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah. I dig the fact that you already said and you believe that we all are multidimensional beings. I've been searching to try to find the truth behind that, but now that you say that, it makes sense. You know,
absolutely.
I just didn't.
It's a reminder.
Yeah. And it's just,
you know what it is it's just I'm just reminding you of your own celestial heritage and your own divinity. That's all. I'm just reminding you, because sometimes we get so busy in this world, which can be linear to some degree, we forget our divinity. And most people are just, you know, chomping at the bit to rob us of our divinity. So I like to remind people, and that goes for everything, you know, all life forms, all states of consciousness. We live in a multidimensional world. I mean, that's why we get into these realms of, you know, lower astral planes, and we go into the linear world and then other dimensional spaces. And then there are some that are manufactured. So you've got dimensions that are actually created through almost like a virtual field. And those are synthesized.
You know, what's funny is when Tracy was around, he would always blow our minds, because he would think that every time we came to a close call in our life, like if we had an accident where we should have died but we didn't, that we actually did die and just started a new life from that moment on.
I agree with him. I totally agree with him.
Do you?
Yes,
wow.
I do. Because I can tell you, when I was pulled into that covert program, I legally changed my name. That's my soul name. One of my soul descension names is Solaris. But I literally died to some degree. There was a part of me that died because I had a successful marriage, career, life with a wonderful husband. I had everything perfect in my life. And when I was pulled into that covert program, all of that was destroyed. It was like I died and was re-resurrected through a communication and artificial intelligence program. So I can tell you, I believe that too. And then there's this other thing where if people have near-death experiences, I don't know how, you know, some people out there might have had a car accident or something where they survived it, but they had near-death. Sometimes there's soul rotations that come in, or what we call, you know, they have the soul rotation where they make an agreement and a contract. One goes out, another one comes in, and that's when you have a totally different personality that occupies the vessel, that knows what it wants to do, because they made an agreement before they even incarnated here that was going to happen. So we have that also.
Wow. And you're right about that, because I know that a lot of people have changes when they come out of a very traumatic experience.
Mm-hmm.
Wow,
Yep. Yeah.
that's just crazy. I never thought of it like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that happens more than you think too.
I bet. I bet. I mean, I know the change comes around, and some people want to call it midlife crisis. Maybe something happened. I've
Right.
I've taken to the point where I've become. I was so shy when I was younger, and at some point, and I think it's when I embraced my witch and heritage, because I know my mom was very sensitive. She and I were very connected, and I always told everybody I was able to communicate with my mom before she even knew I was on my way, because she would hear a baby cry and she didn't know she was pregnant. And then her mom told her, well, you better go check yourself. So she did go to the hospital and then found out that I was on the way. And then her mom, who was also full-blooded Native American, said that I was going to be very special because I was already contacting her from the other side.
No
And
kidding.
it was
Yes.
true. She and I were very, very connected. She would think about me, I would call her, and she knew I was going to call her.
Wow, I used to have that kind of connection with my mother too, so I can relate to that. But yeah, it definitely sounds like you've traveled together in other lifetimes for sure. And yeah, very empowered, entered onto this world very, very empowered. True goddess, always there.
Yeah. Do you think that people like yourself and me, for meeting just the first time and having such a strong connection, do you think we've met before?
Oh, I get, yeah, you're totally a star sister. It was really weird, and just when I even first heard your voice on your radio show, I was like, gosh, not only did I love your show, there was something about you, I just felt like I needed to reach out to you. And I did. So that was interesting. And I thought, well, she probably think I'm crazy, but I'm going to just go ahead and, reach out to her.
No,
But yeah.
actually, when I got your message and the first thing I felt was a connection. I was thinking, oh my God, I have to talk to this lady, because for some reason I had this need to speak with you, and it's weird when I meet people and I have such a strong connection. I have inside my head, I'm thinking, okay, I know we've met before, or we've traveled somewhere in our lives before together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a circle, It's just really
Exactly,
weird.
yeah.
We find our
Star sisters.
yeah.
Yep.
That's
Yeah,
great.
and plus we're doing the work here. We're here anchoring an awful lot of multidimensional waves onto the world. So that's part of it as well.
And I think that's what it is. I think I needed you to remind me of who I truly am.
Exactly.
And
Well, sometimes we all need that.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
very important. You know?
Yeah. Especially when you have doubts, because everybody around you is so negative, and I have so much negativity in my life, and it's hard for me to maintain myself and balance myself solo, and it's always
Right. Oh, I
refreshing.
understand. Not only is it negative, sure, atmospheric circumstances, but it seems like the world could get really polarized in negativity too. That's why we have to navigate at higher frequencies, just to be the spy birds, so we can oversee the whole thing, because it gets so weird, it gets so hostile.
This is true. This is true. Unfortunately, there's only so much you can do to tell people what's going on, or to at least try to help them see a bigger aspect than just the here and now.
Exactly. Well, I think once they reach that level of consciousness where they understand who they are as multidimensional beings, then they start to understand the language of what we call light, or the language of the stars, and then they can correlate everything here and look at it as from almost like the sacred witness, instead of being so involved in the drama, right?
Exactly.
But until they do that, and it also takes spiritual work, as you well know, you've got to do the work. And most people don't want to. They want a quick fix. They don't want to get in there and roll up their sleeves. For me, it was natural to go with the flow of consciousness and spirituality. Some people, it's very hard. They don't want to even go near it. So it is a journey, there's no doubt, but you have to at least take the first step.
Yeah. And a lot of people are afraid to take the first step because they don't want to be accused of being an individual. They want to go and be sheeple, and I really despise that when people want to just go with the flow because everybody else is doing it. They don't want to stand and be by themselves and be the individual that they can be,
Right, and also it puts you up, but when you stand up and you're standing alone, sometimes you will get, I've been there. I understand what it's like to be completely under psychic attack, or just being attacked in general, because you're going against the herd, or the horde, however you want to call it. So yeah, there's definitely some polarization there, but then you learn to be more powerful, more purified in your own celestial psychic protection. And the thing about the technology that I talk about is that's for people there's more. It's not about psychic attack or spirit attack from a different. It's actually which can hijack.
Wait a minute.
This is something extra to learn.
You're breaking up.
Oh, my kitty just walked around my computer. I wonder if it was him.
I think that's what it was.
Gosh, that means my cat has some kind of a special ability.
Yeah, magnet.
He's a big puffer cat, too. He's
Aww.
He's a kitten. He's 6 months, but he looks like a big cat. So
Aww.
sorry about that.
Please repeat the last thing you said, because it was so
Okay.
profound.
Yeah, no, I was talking about the technology because the covert warfare program is one of the bigger things. That's one of the reasons I say it's an extra tool in the toolbox, because people need to understand that it's not just about a spiritual attack or a psychic attack, but they can also do covert warfare attacks, which are based on signals and assault programs based on ultra low frequency and some other things. And that's what I wanted to point out as well, because everything can be combined.
Wow. I'm at a loss for words, because you can't even imagine how comforting what you've been saying and what you've been talking about has been for me. Because
I'm so glad.
I was at a point where I honestly just didn't want to be in this. I didn't want to be in this world anymore, and I just wanted it to stop. I just wanted to get off the world. And
well, you sound like me and a lot of other people, because every week on my radio show I say, I want my spaceship and I just want to get out of here and take my animals with me.
Exactly.
So you're not alone. You're not alone.
It was disheartening that I couldn't connect with somebody, and here you are. I'm connecting, and I get it now. And you make it so clear that I'm not crazy. That's
Not
a good
at
thing
all.
about it. But yeah, I only have an hour show, and I could do this all night long.
Well, I'm happy to come back anytime, and of course you're going to be on my show too. So
I know, and I can't wait for that, because I just can't wait.
it'll be fun.
But
Be sure to promote that.
I do want to thank you, Solaris. As far as this being kind of like my Halloween show, I'm very happy that I have you on here. And you just made, and I hope you made everybody that's listening see some kind of light and some kind of light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak.
Well, thank you, Jenna. It's been an honor and a pleasure to connect with you, and I look forward to connecting with you again. And happy Samhain. Happy Witches' New Year.
Happy Samhain to you as well. Thank you, my dear, and I will see you on your show. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight. Remember to be safe. Have a safe holiday. And as always, in the memory of Tracy Frost, we will see you on the other side. Have a great weekend, everybody. Good night. Thank you, Solaris.
Thank you.